Welcome back to Real Florida Magazine.
Welcome back. Here today on the beautiful campus of Florida Panhandle Technical College, another in our series of Meet the Candidates. Here today with Jamey Westbrook, currently running for Florida Representative District 5. Jamey, actually a longtime politician, has had his fingers in a lot of pies. When we come back, we're going to talk about all that with Jamey. Talk a little bit about Jamey's past, his history, his heritage, his education. More importantly, the reason he wants to be your next representative in Florida District 5. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Here today again, as I mentioned, with Jamey Westbrook. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for taking the drive over from Mariana. You're currently running for Florida Representative District 5.
That's right.
There have been a lot of redistricting ploys, a lot of stuff going on. Let's start at the beginning, Jamey. I know that you've served in the legislature in the past, but let's start beyond that. Let's talk about Jamey. Let's talk about your family and your heritage and your history, in your case, in Jackson County.
Well, thank you. My family, I was raised in Bascom, Florida, in Jackson County, in the northeast corner of Jackson County. Born right across the river in Donaldsonville, Georgia, and had about 12 pounds and 14 ounces. Pretty good size there for the time. I'm half American, half Irish. My mama was from Belfast, Northern Ireland. My daddy went into the Army Air Corps in 1941 during World War II, and met my mother working in an airplane factory in England, and they got married even before my daddy even left. They got married. I have an older sister who was born in she was born in Birmingham, England. I was of course born in, as I said, in Donaldsonville, Georgia, and just worked the whole time. Very poor family, very hard scrabble living for the most part, but we had one another, so we had a lot of love there, and so we made it. And my mom and daddy tried to help me all my life. My daddy died young with Alzheimer's disease, contacted at 55, dead at 64. My mother died kind of with a broke heart in 1998, and but she lived a good life. She loved her family, and sorry to say that she didn't live longer on my dad either. But anyway, that's just part of life and part of families. The next day, tomorrow's not promised to us, and we know that. But my mother and daddy always supported me very strongly, and always whatever I wanted to do, helped me when I started in my business that I'm even in today. My mother helped me. I've been a water well driller for 39 years and 4, 5, 6 months. Long time.
Can't keep a job, huh?
Boy, it's a full time one. Water well drilling, and I would say dairy farming was probably the toughest, and next water well drilling, because when you wake up on Sunday morning, it's just like when you wake up on Wednesday morning. Most of the time, someone's pump's torn up, or they need you to come see about it, and at that time, they're the only one.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Your mom being from Northern Ireland, did she talk about the Troubles? Did she talk about some of that history and heritage?
Yes, my mother lived through some tough times there. First of all, my mother was when England and Germany began to war and battle in 1939. My mother was 15 years old, so some of the first things that they were bombed were the schools. And even though Belfast was a huge town, but in the harbor of Belfast, Northern Ireland, was a thing called a shipbuilding company called Harland and Wolff. And for many years, that was the largest shipbuilder in the world. They're closed now, but all my family were shipbuilders on the male side, and most of my family on the women's side, the female side, they supported their spouses who were in the shipbuilding business. I mean, as far as working for Harland and Wolff. So, as you well know, the Germans, they bombed Belfast for like 14, 16, 18 days in a row, trying to blow up Harland and Wolff to put the shipbuilders out of business. They blew up the schools, they blew up the banks. My mother said that she saw the money floating down the street, and then nobody mattered, nobody cared. They were just trying to live, you know. So, I have, not that it probably takes away from this or adds to it, but I have 10 uncles, and my daddy served combat. My wife had 4 uncles, her daddy served combat. So I have quite a few. One of my uncles, 43 years in the British Royal Air Force. one of my uncles, 41 years in the British Royal Army, and one of the first, he was some of the first special forces for the British Royal Army. So
Your mom must have been a tough woman.
she was tough. She was very tough.
Coming through that, obviously here in the United States, we experienced part of World War I and part of World War II, not on our soil, on mainland America. To live in the thick of that, she must have had some stories.
She had a lot of them. Even at the airplane factories, she and two of her sisters would go to the end of the line of the train and ride bicycles and think it would see someone and that sort of thing on those wooded areas. It was where Nottingham Forest is where you've read those stories about where they built them and then had those big tarpaulins over them to hide them. And so, yeah, but she had it was tough coming up for her, but it's tough for all of us coming up when she was coming up in the 30s and the 40s and also, for us in the 50s and 60s, 70s.
The value to you, certainly, with your parents having the heritage that they had and your mom going through all that she did over there, I'm sure that she made you resourceful and made you a free thinker and made you stand up on your own and take care of yourself. If nothing else, that you had to come away with that.
Yes, sir, and very much so. And you were raised to work, and if you weren't up at my house by about 6:30, my mother had the vacuum cleaner. If she was making noise or washing the windows or whatever it took. My mother was probably the hardest working lady I've ever seen. And my wife is the same way. And I guess that's probably the reason I was able to pick my wife, was because of how hard she worked as well and took care of everybody she could. And my mother was the same way. She always missed Ireland. She, even in the later years of her life, she missed Ireland. But at the same time, she loved my sister and me, and she was resourceful for a poorly educated person. She was very resourceful, and so was my dad. My dad worked 2 jobs all his life, and of course for 20 and 25 years of my career I worked 2 jobs. I well drilled all day and farmed all night.
I would imagine, Jamey, given that background, that family heritage that you just espoused, you're a fiscal conservative at the very least.
Certainly, by every rule I am, yes, and always will be.
You're currently running in this current race as a NPA, no party affiliation, but you are a registered Republican at this time.
Yes, sir.
Talk a little bit about your political leanings and your philosophies when it comes to that part of it.
Well, and that's a real good question. And first of all, when you speak of being fiscally conservative, any person that succeeds in a small business for a long time has got to be that. And we talked briefly before, you better have it figured out how you're going to pay for something before you buy it. And if you've got the money to buy it, there's nothing wrong with investing in it as long as you're taking care of tomorrow. But anyway, when I served in the legislature in '97 and '8, I worked hard every day, all day, and I'm sure if someone served themselves, it'd be a lot of fun. But working in the Florida legislature, provided you work, it's a job. It's a tough job, and you got a lot of responsibility. And when I served before, I had 8 school boards, 8 county commissions, and all those municipalities as well. And I had part of Bay County as well as part of Leon County, but then I had Jackson, Calhoun, Liberty, Gulf, full counties, and a small part of Gadsden, part of Leon, small part of Bay, of course, and the South Walton, below the Bay Area in South Walton County. But we built a lot of schools.
And that was District 7 at the time?
That was District 7 at the time. We built a lot of schools. We fixed a lot of ill repair. I did a lot of repair with courthouse that was in dire strait. We fixed a lot of ag centers, community where everyone is allowed to use. Had a great road program with a scrap program that I worked and saw coming, and was fortunate enough to ask the speaker in the middle of a session to let me be on the transportation committee. He allowed me to be. I worked with Edward Prescott, local man here in Chipley, to create the scrap program, who Edward is one of the best people I know. I just had a good career. It was just short-lived, you know.
They say that a liberal is simply a conservative that hasn't been mugged yet. Other people say that, you know, if you are not a Democrat when you're young, you have no heart, but if you're not a conservative Republican when you get old, especially if you own your business, you have no soul. Either way, I think that the reality is that if you, especially if you're self-employed, but if you're a hard worker, if you have a work ethic, it's pretty tough to be liberal to the great extent. That doesn't mean can't be a giving, caring person. I would imagine your mom didn't think a whole lot of some of these government giveaway programs.
No, she wouldn't have taken one had they have given her one. And even though they had free health care, and because Belfast, Northern Ireland, obviously, and those 6 counties that still belong to the British Commonwealth, you know, and they were part of the United Kingdom and the Union. And she was proud to tell you that, and she'd tell you pretty doggone quick she was a Protestant Irish, and she had no ill will for Catholics or anybody, and neither do I. But at the same time, she just was proud of her heritage, and she wanted to say that. There's a lot of, Paul, in the legislature. I went there serving as a Democrat, but I voted with the Republicans every time, and was fortunate to serve under a great speaker, a fine man named Dan Webster, and his walk and his talk was all the same, and I tried to let mine be the same way. And it didn't take but about one time with Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or now Congressperson Debbie Wasserman Schultz, to realize I couldn't be over there on that liberal side, and so I never caucused with them after the first time. I never went back and caucused with them. If I caucused with the Republicans, and they were progressive. Everyone there were progressive. They didn't want to cut spending as much as they wanted to get the most out of the dollar, and that was Dan Webster's statement. He even came up one time and said, I don't know why we don't have one model for a school, and every time we build a school, we build that model, and we know how much to spend and know what it'll cost. And that was a fortunate thing. Not to elaborate too much with the program, but it was so important that Speaker Webster told me in front of every one of us the first day we organized, he said, anyone in here that wants to legislate, I'm going to allow you to do it. And that was the words I wanted to hear. And that bell rang. And so I went to him that day and told him that I was proud to be there. And even fortunate enough, he called me at home the next day, and he said, I'm going to ask you to work with me once in a while. I said, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to be there to work with you every day. Every day I'm there. And he had not many issues other than moral issues. He didn't have many business issues. Now, Representative Thrasher and later on the Speaker, Representative King and a lot of others had a lot of business issues, and I did too. But we always worked together, and I never went and asked the Speaker for one thing that he didn't do, and everything. And I've got tons of projects that we got while I was those couple of years there, and they're all because of the Speaker of the House and also the President of the Senate, Toni Jennings. She was a sweetheart and a true person as well. So all that, as we all know, everything that goes through the House must go through the Senate and also go by the governor. So.
That was back in the late 90s, and that was District 7, Florida Representative District 7.
That's correct.
Skewed more toward the east of where we find ourselves today. You are with redistricting, as we mentioned in the intro to the show. You are now running for District 5 Florida Representative, which is skewed a little bit more to the west. It includes South Walton, or it includes all of Walton County, yes. Washington, Holmes, Jackson, and the northern part of Bay County.
Yeah, just a small portion of Bay. Only has about 6,500 voters there, 6,500. And also let me tell you that when you only have part of a county, that doesn't stop constituents from coming and asking for something, and well, it should not.
Many times they're not aware.
That's right. Well, it should not. They should come there. As I had a colleague from a little different than I was from down at Pompano Beach said he was a state representative and not a district representative. I said, well, I'm glad to know you feel that way, and I did too. But I didn't care. I had people many times, Washington County, Holmes County, people that knew me contacted me to ask me to help, and I helped every one of them. You won't find a person that I didn't help. You don't find a person that tells, unless it was after hours, that our phones weren't answered. And provided I'm elected again, and that phone doesn't get answered, then in about 30 days, that person working for me will be gone. 1 month.
Looking at that district now, with the northern part of Bay County, Jackson, Washington, Holmes, and the northern part of Walton County, all pretty similar. Agriculturally based, lots of natural resources. The only thing that stands out in that is the South Walton piece. Yeah. Obviously heavily tourism oriented. Yeah. Lots of absentee owners, as a matter of fact.
That's right.
So definitely. So you've got a wide variety of people. You've got a wide variety of the way people make a living. What do you see going forward as one of the challenges to adequately represent that entire district?
Well, as we sometimes say and have said in the last 6 months or a year, the race is about two areas. We have two races. We have a race in all but South Walton, and we have a race in South Walton as well. The people that live in South Walton, for the most part, are fortunate, but they had to work to get there. They're just as important. A person is just as important to me in South Walton as they are in Greenwood. A constituent that don't have as good fortune as others is just as important to me as someone that makes 10 figures or 9 figures or 6 figures or whatever you want to say. I want to serve people. I'm not interested in serving AT&T. I'm not interested in serving Dade County. I'm interested in serving the Panhandle of Florida. That's what I'll do. That's what I want to do. That's home, and that's where the most needs are. And you got to have someone that's strong enough to not let them run over you. And if you'll check with anyone that was there while I was there, that didn't happen with me.
You've been burning up the shoe leather. We see you pretty much everywhere we are, at least in this several county area here north of Bay County, but I know you're spending a lot of time in all of those counties. What are you hearing from the people? What are the greatest needs as we sit here today? And what are you hearing from South Walton, as you point out, all the way to the east end of Jackson County at Sneads, and from Paxton in the north of Walton County, all the way down to Youngstown Fountain in Bay County?
Well, certainly their needs are different, and certainly their wants is different. And you know, sometimes we have to separate wants and needs, but there's nothing wrong when you're a taxpayer. You feel like you should be heard. I'm the same way. I feel the same way. I pay taxes in Washington County, I pay taxes in Jackson County, and I pay taxes on some property out of state. But what I see in South Walton is some people that want to come together, that want to get themselves together. They got a lot of little small towns there, but at the same time, they're due their say. They're due what they're interested. They're carrying a heavy tax load for being in that area. That's by choice, but they're still carrying that. At the same time, when you go to and a lot of people, as your Bay County background tells you, Bay County, they call this on the ridge up here, as the most I've ever heard them say. Well, we worked years ago to have state agencies and the prisons, we have, of course, obviously the school system as well, but the state employees, the Department of Transportation, and every one of those people need to have a say in what's going on. They've tried to take away the say for DOT and send it to Tallahassee. That's dead wrong. That's dead wrong. They need to make those decisions here. We got people that are just as competent as anybody that's here. The prison they haven't had a raise in 10, 11 years. The people that's incarcerated have more rights than the people guarding them. We don't have enough to guard them. They don't even know if they got enough people when they get to the end of their shift, and they have children. I mean, regardless if it's a man or a lady, they have children, they have family, they have places to go, they have pets, whatever, and they're not being treated fairly there. Well, if they'll get the salaries up, they might not mind making some different ways to do. But at the same time, All those people are important. We have Sunland Training Center in Jackson County, Florida, that's working on about the second or third generation of people working there. They're important. And if they're not, if they open the gates, what are they going to do with those people? They're being taken care of very well. We have Chattahoochee State Hospital, who is right on the line. We have just so many different entities that have kind of been ignored. And I didn't ignore them in 97, 8, and I won't ignore them this time.
Even though you are a registered Republican, you changed to NPA to be able to run this race.
That's correct.
You've got two opponents, one who is the incumbent, Brad Drake,
Yes, sir.
and one is his challenger, Bev Kilmer, who has spent time in the government in the past as you have. What is your challenge looking at your opponents? Why should I vote for you versus one of them?
Well, first of all, let me say one brief thing, that the reason I ran as an NPA candidate was because we have a bad rule in Florida about write-in candidates. And most people don't understand it because in the Panhandle, that's never worked that way very much. And only in the last 15, 20 years have the Republicans came on the scene in force, you know, and they have, and for the most part, the Republicans have done a good job. I'm not sure that their style and our style is step by step, but at the same time, we just have to be stronger to work harder to explain what we got to have. But at the same time, with a write-in candidate, you don't. If someone puts a write-in candidate in, then it puts you to a closed primary. Well, that's not the fair thing to do. Write-in candidate, that's a bad rule. That's a bad thing. But anyway, I'm sure it will get addressed because the press is picking up on it and run it now and explain it. The reason people would be to vote for me is because I work 5 times as hard as anybody else. I won a bucket full of awards when I was in the legislature before. Awards don't mean anything to me. Working hard does. I answer my telephone every day because that's my style. That's what I've always done in business. So as you've seen, when you and I have had a couple of chats prior, you know, my phone rings, I say, excuse me, and I answer my phone. I put my phone number on my advertisement a lot of times. I had a gentleman to call me yesterday, but I'll have 5 or 10 every day. But my working ability and be able to work with others and my knowledge of the people that I know all the way across the Panhandle will serve us very well and be able to be accessible to, even to congressional or United States senatorial candidates, where we can explain to them what we're looking for, what we want. We don't want a handout. There's nobody in the Panhandle of Florida wants a doggone handout. What they want to be treated fairly, but they also want to be heard. And also, they want to be able to find you. And just like in my business, I run my business, I'll run that legislative office the same way. And woe be unto anyone that works for me that does not comply with my constituents. And I've had a lot of them, and got a lot of stories, a lot of good stories about people being mistreated, and me straightening it out for them, and all walks, whether they be state employees or wealthy people that's retired and come here, which we're glad to have them. Any way you look at it, well, I will be a voice, and I will stand to them, and I will be able to deal with them. But the main thing in the Florida legislature, I'll close this question, answer this question about what you've got to have, whether it be in business or be in the Florida legislature, they've got to have respect for you. And I will assure you, they'll have respect for me. You earn that respect, you ask for that respect, and you know, used to on the playground, sometimes we had to gain it. You know, you had to gain it how you had to gain it. So that won't come to that, but at the same time, earning people's respect and having their respect is the key to getting stuff and working with others when they need you to work with them, and then they'll work with you.
You alluded to my time in Bay County. We moved down there in the early 70s from Gainesville, Florida, and we're there for 30 years. 10, 11 years ago, decided to move up here, coined what we call the real Florida. Didn't realize that the state park system was already using a phrase similar to that. But nonetheless, we live here on purpose. We live here because we want to live here.
Yes.
We've lived all around the country. And at the end of the day, we are here not because we're stuck here, but because we want to live here, specifically right here in Chipley, in Washington County, but surrounded by Holmes County, Jackson County, all of your district, north part of Bay County, including southeast Alabama. Just a wonderful climate.
Yes.
People,
yes.
hardworking.
Yes.
We often say that we're probably some of the least affected, or last affected anyway, when the economy goes bad, and probably some of the first to rebound again when things start to come back, because of the fact that we're not tourism based, we're not industrialized to the point where we're depending on those jobs. Still a huge agricultural base. How does that agricultural part of the economy figure into your representation, and what do you hear from farmers, and obviously a lot of them in this 5-county area?
Well, and that comes natural to me, even though I was not raised owning land. I did not inherit land or real estate or ag land, we mostly call it. What ag land that I have, I began to buy that in '85 and '6 and move forward as I worked harder and got everything situated to help make sure my family was okay before I began to invest in that. But anyway, agriculture, and of course Jackson County, Florida, just Jackson County, many years ago had $100 million worth of income out of agriculture products. And one time when I was in Tallahassee, he said, "Can you name all the products that you all have in Jackson County?" And I began to name, and I got to 20 or 25 different things, and the rest of them didn't have but 5 or 6. I said, "I'm going to win this, whether it be good or whether it be bad." But what the other thing and some of our young people move straight in agriculture where they're the second or third generation with agriculture. You know, and we see many of that in the northern part of Washington County. Same way in Holmes, same way in Walton. And they're all like kind people and good, fine people. I've never met one that I didn't like. But at the same time, the youth that we have got to come up with something that training, and a friend of mine in Walton County said it the best. He said, "We've got to think far ahead, not when it's here." And what he meant by that, something that was coming. And so I've been working on something there that I won't elaborate on because it's a long way from me, but I don't have it in my grasp yet. But if we could put our young people to work with a very good paying job, then they would be here. They're all going to have computers. They're all going to have all kinds of gadgets with their phones. You know, most of them young enough their parents bought them for them. So they want them to have them. But at the same time, in agriculture, as well as in the field that I'm in as far as water well drilling, we got to create something that's technical, which we're sitting right in the middle of a technical place. If you give opportunity, there's opportunities for tech and all, but at the same time, vocational, we've got to give them an opportunity. I maybe could find you one, I maybe could find you one young well driller. Won't be able to find many. Same way with welding. You know, you take a person that learns how to weld, and they'll have a job forever. Same way with well drilling. My point is that there's plenty of room and plenty of area for young people to get a good job if we provide them the opportunity. They can't create a job for themselves. A young person can't. You and I created jobs as we got older, as we thought more, as we involved in communities to see. But a young person's not that way. First of all, their interest is not what ours is for the most part. And that's okay. I mean, there's a few of them wants to be hunters, a few of them wants to be fishermen and cattle people and that sort of thing. But at the same time, there's some of them that want to make money at an early age, and a young age, and I respect them for that, because every time we put a person into a job, they're helping you and I pay taxes. And we'll create those taxes, which is a given. Not that I like them, but at the same time, they're a given. I'm glad to see that the gas tax, simply because that helps with our roads. But moving on from that, young people is our future. That's what we got to do. And we need to interest them in the political world all we can. Yeah.
We are sitting right here today on the campus of Florida Panhandle Technical College. Not long ago, Washington Homes Technical Center, what they used to call the VOTEC. It's not just a name change, it's a philosophy change, and it's also a change to the high-tech programs. Cybersecurity, there's a drone program starting up this fall. There's hemodialysis, nursing, and then there's also the standard manual skills, welding and auto body and auto mechanics. I know for a long time you were involved in Chipola, what used to be Chipola Junior College.
That's correct.
Now a 4-year certified college. Not unlike in the old days of Chipola, Florida Panhandle Technical College, coming up to the point where it's not going to be long and we're going to be a lot more on the map than we ever have been before. As a legislator in Florida, you, as well as all of the others, can do wonders in helping to direct people to that type of a career. Because at the end of the day, we have people, we have the boomerang generation.
Yes.
We've got kids graduating college, $150,000 worth of school debt, moving back home with mom and dad, that's the boomerang part, and not being able to find a job because they're really not qualified at that point or hireable.
Yes.
Whereas when they, after a year's time here as a welder or as a cosmetologist or as a bookkeeper,
yes,
they can go to work and make good money. Right now, Eastern Shipyards in Panama City
yes,
is hiring draftsmen out of our program and before they're done with the program and offering them a living wage within an hour of where we sit today. My question to you is, what can you and what will you do? What will you tell your voters or your constituents going forward if you're elected? What are you going to do to make sure that colleges like Florida Panhandle Technical College, Chipola College, others who offer the ability to be trained in the real skills for a real job going forward, what can you do to help proliferate that?
Well, what I would want to do first, and Paul, that's a very good question. What I would want to do is come right here, or have us as many technical schools we have some at Chipola, and come right here where everyone would get a fair shake. One not getting, I'm not going to serve one county. I'm going to serve 4.5 counties. I'll serve 6 counties. I can serve 8 counties. It doesn't matter to me because I can do that. I'm capable of doing that because I have the background to do it. One of the main things that I see, and you're very right, we've got to do something about a doggone textbook in a college or a school costing $300 and $400. That is the worst awful mess I ever saw. I was fortunate enough to serve on the Board of Trustees Chipola for a long time, and I served with my dear friend from Chipley, Florida, named Phil Roundtree, and he was adamant about an education. I tell you what else he was adamant about, and I took his lead. He was adamant about holding the tuition the same. He was adamant about the books being at least fairly priced. And I took the same thing, and not to demonstrate anything, but my friend Phil Roundtree was the best I've ever seen. God rest his soul, he's passed on, but I learned a lot from him. But he would take his finger, he didn't point at anybody, he pointed it straight down and popped it on the book, and he would be pretty demonstrative when he did that. And it was wonderful to see him stand out and stand up and stand out for that. And I followed his lead all the time, and that was a wonderful time to serve. I served for 4 years. I served 10, 12 years, but 10, 11 years. But anyway, and was appointed by Republicans and appointed by Democrats the same way. But every person that served on that board, there was a gentleman in Holmes County named Ken Yates that I served with, and he was a wonderful person to learn to be a board member from. But getting back to the main issue of it, the main issue is the cost, where they don't come home owing hundreds of thousands of dollars. My wife and I helped one of our grandchildren become an ARNP, and that was our vow. When she finished, which she just finished a few weeks ago, that she didn't have all that, she wasn't saddled with that debt, and we helped pay it just like her mom did. But whatever it takes, in answer to your question, whatever it takes. And that's what we say in well drilling. When we get in a bad spot in the well, they say, what you want me to do? I say, whatever it takes. So that's the way we'll do with the technical school. That's the way we'll do with those young people, whatever it takes, and I'll be right there for it. Never you doubt it.
Interestingly, this Friday night, which is tomorrow, but depending on when people are watching the show, We will be at Philip Roundtree's namesake, Philip Roundtree Stadium, right here in Chipley, Florida.
We'll be too.
We will be broadcasting live the Chipley football game.
With Freeport.
Based right here at the FPTC radio, the radio station here on the Technical College campus. Just one example of how we're embracing that community from a student-run aspect. So people can come here, learn how to do those skills, and then go out into the real world for that real job.
Yeah.
Best of luck going forward. I'd like for you to come back on. Obviously, you're going all the way to the general election, November 8th.
Yes.
We are still finding ourselves now at the end of August, just getting ready for that primary.
Yes.
In another a week and a half or so, you're going to find out who you're going to have as an opponent going forward in that general election. But I would like to give you an open invitation at some point in time.
Thank
Please
you.
come back.
I would
Let's
love
talk again. We've made that invitation available to all political candidates in all races.
Yes.
Interestingly, in all of those counties, which you will serve as Representative District 5.
That's even better.
Is there anything, Jamey, that we have not asked that you would like to let us know about?
No, I would say this very briefly, that I consider that an opportunity that would belong to the people. That opportunity to elect me is to the people. The people, that's their seat. I want them to know where I am. I want them to know what I'm doing. Transparency, maybe for a bigger word. I couldn't describe transparency for a long time. But at the same time, I want to be visible, and I want to serve them. That's been one of my ambitions for a long time. I left early on a very terrible consequences, not to bring the show to a close with a negative, but I was charged with a federal crime over $387. It was a terrible, terrible thing. I would answer any question about that. But I'll tell you what.
Before you get off that, you were totally exonerated.
Yes, sir. I was acquitted in about 30 or 40 minutes by a jury of my peers, and that's what I told them. When they said, we're going to give you a change of venue, I said, no, sir. You put me in front of the people that know me, and you put me around the people where you charge me, and then we'll work from there. And it was a terrible situation. They had no case whatsoever, but because of decisions that you make sometime, and sometimes your profile gets higher. And I don't know if you know this, but in the United States government for a long time, and I don't know if they do it today, but if they successfully prosecute a person of political nature, whether it be a city commissioner, county commissioner, state representative in my case, or what, they go to Washington, they get a bonus, they get a plaque. I don't know if they still do that. I won't make that accusation.
You're talking about the prosecutor?
Yes, sir. And that's about as unfair. And they call that trial by ambush. They have no discovery. I had no discovery. They don't have one shred of evidence against me, and it proved out. And a jury of my peers, those 11 ladies and that one gentleman that acquitted me, God bless every one of them's heart, they saw just like I did. The judge saw that. The judge made rulings, and I'll never forget, and maybe I should maybe not say this, but the judge asked us to approach the bench, and I did. And he said, you may go from here today, and you'll never hear from us again. And that was music in my ears, and I was happy. And I couldn't say that for a long time without crying. And I'm a tough old boy, and I'm not much on crying. We learned that in the playground, in the play yard. They call you a crybaby if you did that. So you had to take your lumps. And I took my lumps, but I just kept right on ticking like
Well, so often in today's media, everyone is guilty until they prove themselves innocent.
That's the way they did me.
It's totally turned around, and that's talk for another
Right.
show.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you for your candidness. Thank you for your frankness.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. Best of luck going forward. Again, love to talk to you again after the primary, and maybe we get a little bit closer. Maybe let our viewers know a little bit more about you and all the reasons they should vote for you.
I'll stand up for our people every day. Every day, I'll be there to stand for them.
Well said. Our guest today has been Jamey Westbrook, currently running for Florida Representative District 5. We're looking at the primary here in the next couple of weeks, depending on when you're watching this show. But Jamey will go all the way to the November 8th general election. You'll hear more from Jamey going forward, just as you will some of the other candidates. We appreciate your viewership. This is your opportunity to become an informed, educated voter. When you enter that polling booth, that you make the right choice for the right candidate according to your lifestyle and your needs. We appreciate you as a viewer, and hopefully over time we'll get 100% of all of the announced candidates in this 5-county area to participate in these Meet the Candidates forums. We'll be right back.